You guys, I have a counselor that's having problems getting in on Zoom. I'm going to ask for a couple minutes just so I can see if I can get him in before we start the State of the City. Wanted to remind everybody that we are recording and it is live streamed at this point. Thank you. Thank you for the delay, Mayor. It's all good.
Good, meaning we're ready to go?
Uh-oh.
Very my fault.
Yep.
Just received an email from Councilor Lehman saying he didn't have the invite.
Yeah, I just resent it to him again, and it looks like he's joining us now. Thank you.
Okay, I see him now. Thank you. Reading a little bit late on the State of the City for 2021. This was recorded in a video, and I think we're going to be pretty happy with the product itself. I hope you enjoy the State of the City, and we'll take statements and move forward after that. Hello, I'm Ray Smith. For over 5 years, I've had the honor of serving as the mayor of Cobourg. It is my privilege to present to you the 2022 Cobourg State of the City address. The city of Cobourg is very fortunate to be led by an amazing group of city councilors with broad and diverse backgrounds. These citizens have courageously stepped into leadership roles and together have created a solid, knowledgeable team that has guided Coburg through many tough issues. Our council convened 20 meetings in 2021. Each of these meetings requires about 2 hours of reading and study prior to attending the meeting. We are so grateful to our counselors for all the volunteer hours they commit to our city, and especially for the courage to step up and make tough decisions that affect our city now and into the future. Counselors, thank you for your continued dedication and service. 2021 is a year that will be remembered by many as the exhausting continuation of the COVID-19 pandemic. Coburg has not been immune to the consequences of this pandemic. However, we have been fortunate to maintain a high livability standard while dealing with the era of social distancing and political discord at every level of society. Coburg is a small city of about 1,300 residents with 85 licensed businesses. We straddle I-5 just north of the Eugene-Springfield metropolitan area. The small town feel and quick access to the metro area is one of the many appealing perks of living and working in Coburg. Coburg has 19 employees and contracts for city attorney, city engineer, municipal judge, and a city planner. Land use, planning, development, water, sewer, street, park, and police services. We are a small city with big ambitions. Our working capacity is severely limited by our number of employees. In spite of this, our small staff accomplishes an amazing amount of high quality work. Rest assured, the residents and businesses are getting great value for their tax dollars. We should be very proud of the Coburg staff's accomplishments. Our properties continue to hold high value, and the city continues to expand its livability and cultural experiences. Coburg continues to be fiscally sound and well-positioned for possible economic downturns and potential disasters. Our water and sewer departments are financially stable and well-maintained. The water system is in the process of modernization and expansion. Water and sewer departments are self-supporting through the fees charged to users. We do not use tax dollars to support these services. With good planning and aggressive maintenance, we have been able to keep our fees stable while still providing expanded services and system upgrades. Transportation issues in Coburg affect every aspect of governance and living in Coburg. Growth of population and business have affected Coburg tremendously. Increased traffic has elevated safety concerns and access issues within our city. One of the most significant issues regarding the increased traffic lies outside of Coburg, and thus outside of Coburg's ability to control and respond to the problems. Growth of cities and businesses to the northwest of Coburg have been generating larger numbers of commuter and commercial traffic through our town. This traffic travels on Willamette and Pearl Streets to access Interstate 5 and the Eugene-Springfield metropolitan areas. Although these streets are within our city limits, they actually belong to Lane County. Another jurisdictional issue is the I-5 overpass, which is owned by the Oregon Department of Transportation. This structure effectively divides our city with an outdated, unsafe bridge that is the only access to all residents and businesses on the east side of I-5 at Coburg. These jurisdictional overlaps have created a significant workload for our city planning while trying to deal with community safety and development issues. Staff and elected officials have diligently worked to increase communication and knowledge regarding these transportation concerns. Emergency response for our police and fire has become a greater concern as we deal with shortcomings in our local transportation infrastructure. These are issues that the city of Coburg has little to no control over, but we are working and communicating with the controlling jurisdictions. We have developed good working relationships with representatives from many of the agencies, including Lane County, Oregon Department of Transportation, the Department of Land Conservation and Development, and the Oregon Regional Solutions Team. In addition, we have built stronger relationships with our local business leaders to share knowledge that helps us improve zoning and development codes and create a better city response to issues that arise within Coburg. A citizen committee was appointed by the City Council to study and present possible recommendations for updating our downtown commercial zoning ordinance. We are very fortunate to have a very knowledgeable group of citizens working on this project. After months of meetings, the committee has returned with substantial recommendations that will help us to retain our small town charm and livability in our downtown area. The recommendation is complex and is currently being worked into a draft proposal for City Council consideration. The City of Coburg is committed to providing recreational opportunities to our residents and visitors. Our Parks and Trees Committee worked with staff to create a new park and improve our existing parks. We have a new bicycle hub in Pavilion Park, and the city is very close to completing an expansion of that park. The new Johnny Diamond Park is a testament to the energy and creativity of our citizens in creating a unique open space in our new residential neighborhood. The city has also acquired 2 new pieces of land for future parks. The Parks Committee and our Heritage Committee will be working together to plan for a heritage park that will help display and memorialize our agricultural heritage. The Heritage Committee, in addition to the previously mentioned work, has revitalized our commitment to our historic district and the wonderful old buildings. The City of Coburg is supporting the formation of a nonprofit agency called Coburg Main Street. The goal of this endeavor is to create a resource for coordination of knowledge and information for our residents, businesses, and visitors. This nonprofit will apply for and direct grant monies within our community. A key element is to have a paid staff member that can provide continuity and much of the legwork to coordinate and help produce our many festivals and community events. They would also be a primary community access point for information on businesses, events, history, and Coburg local news. Coburg Main Street already has a handful of committees that have volunteers working on projects like Coburg branding and marketing, the rehabilitation and community utilization of the International Order of Oddfellows Hall, a City Hall facade update, community murals and cultural projects, and first responders recognition and support. This organization will be a key player in the future livability of Coburg. It's such a great place to live. I have said this many times and I mean it. But why is it a city that so many of us love? Is it because it's a small town? Is it because we are surrounded by beautiful farmland and natural open spaces? Is it the moderate climate? Yes, to all of these. But most importantly, it is the people that really do love where they live, people that put work into making Coburg a place to love, people that respect each other, work together, and celebrate together, people that share. Coburg has so many talented people. The key to our success is what these people share. From artists to accountants, architects to machinists, farmers to builders. We share in the hard times and we struggle together. We share in the good times and we celebrate together. We share because we know it makes a difference for everybody. We share our time, our knowledge, and our perspective, all to make Coburg a place to love. We share because we care. From elected councilors, mayor, and board members, to volunteer committee members, firefighter EMTs, reserve police officers, and all of the other volunteers, we all give because we care about Coburg. Coburg will remain strong and stable and a town that is easy to love because the people care. Thank you for being Coburg. Thank you for caring. I want to thank the staff we got a videographer that really helped to put this together really quickly and I think did a great job. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes of a 10-minute video. And I do have to thank a lot of staff and a lot of people for pictures and everything else. There was, I believe, about 71 pictures in that. So trying to gather them and then apply them to the script was a production. But again, like I said, in the State of the City, it was the people, they came through, they got us pictures. We got this thing together and I was really happy with the outcome of our State of the City. I mean it when I say it is the people. I think we all know that, and that's what makes Coburg very special. So as tradition dictates, after the State of the City, we provide an award that has multiple names, the Key to the City, the Citizen of the Year, the Outstanding Service Award. We really kind of go back and forth on what we're going to call this, but I'm going to stick with the Key to the City because as I said, in the State of the City, the people are key. So the key is not to open the door. The key represented in this award is the people that make this city a wonderful place. The selection of the candidates and deciding who comes up with receiving this award is never easy, but it is enjoyable. I like going through the year, looking at different people and finding out their stories and just moving forward with seeing where they go, where they've been, and what they're doing for our community. This year, instead of one person, I usually pick a group or a single person. Got a couple of people this time. These people, pretty much ever since I lived here, have been giving to the community. Anybody that's involved in government knows them well. And I think it's an amazing feat to see what these people have done. I made this plaque for a couple of people. As a matter of fact, there are a couple. John and Colleen Marshall.
Whatever. So, well, thank you. This is really an honor. I didn't expect it at all.
Saw the two of you, and I just realized, especially looking into the background and realizing that you literally moved here, settled in, and then jumped in and got on planning commission committees, and just have been active ever since. Just finishing up 10 years on the planning commission. And the planning commission is probably one of the most difficult assignments that you can take on. And you,
as you well know.
Yes, I did it for 4 years. I truly appreciate your dedication, your service. And Colleen, I know she works with my wife on the Parks Committee. She's been on the Budget Committee. She's the Budget Committee.
Park and Tree.
I got my notes over here. I'm trying to stay by a microphone so everybody can hear. Finance and Audit Committee. Essentially, she's been on something, like I said, you guys were here about 10 months and then applied for the committees and you've been here ever since. So
I was prodded by her, so.
well,
Thank you, sir.
You've earned it. That's the fun part. As we all know, as counselors anyway. You look at half a tree that we have to study to come into these meetings. They've been, they're a challenge for not only the counselors, but our staff that spends so much time putting this together. And I just want to take this time at the beginning of the year to recognize all of the time and effort that we see from our staff to make a good product for us to get through these meetings. We've had a couple of illnesses that have changed the staffing for this meeting, and our substitutes are doing a great job. And that's how Coburg works. We're dynamic, we're flexible, and durable. We just keep going. So it's easy to say that we have a good product. It's interesting to see just how much work goes into something. This meeting, I've been back and forth with staff. I've probably got 2 to 3 words of communication between staff to get everything right and move forward with our council meeting and our state of the city. So again, I want to thank the staff for a great job. 2021 was amazing, considering everything that we had to deal with personally and professionally. We did get a lot of stuff done in this city, and it's not slowing down. At this time, I'm going to invite any comments from councilors regarding state of the city or anything else before I start the city council meeting. We're still about 8 minutes away from 7 o'clock to start that meeting. Do I have any comments or statements from councilors? I knew I could wait long enough. Councilor Alexander, thank you.
Well, I, for one, am proud to live in this city, and I'm proud to work with the council and you. And I think that we're very fortunate as a city and as a group of people to have all that we have in this time. And in this time of craziness out there in the world, it's always nice to drive into Coburg and leave it all behind. But it takes a village, and we're doing it. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else? Counselor Fox, come on, guys. I got 5 minutes.
I would ditto what Councilor Alexander said. And from my perspective, growing up in a huge city, New York, and then living in Denver, total of 22 years between the both, to end up in a town this size with the community spirit that it has is quite rewarding. And I hope we keep it that way.
Thank you, Counselor Fox. McConnell.
Well, I would just like to ditto John also and Mark. And I can't express enough my appreciation for the staff and how well they have worked together. They're always so cheerful when I go in. I can't believe how cheerful they are. And I know they've had a lot on their plates, and I just want to say thank you to each of them.
Or Counselor Lehman. President Bell.
I really can't say anything more than has already been said, except that, you know, I've only lived in Coburg a relatively short period of time compared to many people in Coburg. I think we're coming up on 6 or 7 years here in a few months. But I've seen a lot of changes in the time that I've been here. And the changes, while they're difficult, I feel like they are well managed. I think they are well thought out. And I think that they add to our city, our community, and our well-being as a whole. Change is never easy. but it is inevitable if we are to survive. So I would just like to thank not only staff, the mayor, the other counselors, but also the community members who deal with the changes and sometimes the disruption on a daily basis. So thanks to everybody in Coburg.
Counselor Bell. I've said this before, but I want to echo that my wife and I, 7 kids between us, they've all moved out of town. One of them lives on the loop, on Bottom Loop. But the kids that are now adults, middle-aged adults, it just surprises me how many times they come through town and come into town and tell me, wow, the town looks great. It is so different from when I was a kid growing up. So the changes, I think, in many ways are good. It's one thing to grow up in a town. It's another thing to come back and be impressed. And I think that speaks well to all of us, that hopefully we keep making the right decisions in our planning and development. We can't stop growth, but we can certainly control it. That's been the biggest lesson I've learned in 30 years of service in this community. We just have to control it. We have to make it do what we want it to do. It's going to happen, so let's make it happen right. And I think we're just going to continue that because we're listening to our residents. We're listening to our own gut feelings about what we want. And I think it's a very similar message, no matter where it comes from. Let's do it right and put the energy into it so that we don't regret what happens down the road. Overall, I think we're doing a great job and we need to keep it going. And I think between people like the marshals on committees, many of our citizens, I think we have something like almost 30 members that are on committees. And then our 6 counselors and myself, that's a lot of citizen input. And as the council knows, we've worked really hard to get that communication between our committees and commissions and the council so that we have a good, strong voice and lots of ideas and lots of input. And we're going to keep that going because it's on our city goals and I know they're going to stay there. So it's a big thank you, but it's also a well-deserved and well-earned thank you. And we're going to make 22 just as good, if not better. So thank you, counselors, and thank you, staff and the community. With that, I've hesitated long enough to move forward with our city council meeting. I will now call the January 11th, 2022 city council meeting to order at 6:58. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed. The meeting includes participants in person as well as by Zoom video. To participate remotely, you must have registered prior to the meeting. There will be opportunity for public to provide testimony during today's meeting, during the public comment period, and during public hearings. At this time, I'd like to introduce a special guest for our Pledge of Allegiance, our Life Scout, Aaron Gust, who needs to attend a community hearing. We asked him if he would lead our Pledge of Allegiance and he accepted. So with that, I'll ask everybody to mute their devices, stand, and we'll start the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lots of items, got the state of the city in on it. Roll call, Sammy.
Okay, thank you. We have Mayor Smith,
Here.
Councillor Lehman, Councillor Bell,
Here.
Councillor Alexander, Councillor McConnell, Councillor Fox,
Here.
and Councillor Blaine. We have a quorum. All are present.
Thank you, Sammy. There's comments. Recently lost one of our great Coburg people. Those of you that haven't heard, Don Schuessler passed away Thursday, January 6th. Don was a community servant. He served as a city councilor, was mayor after a recall issue, and then served as an interim city administrator. Now, one of the key elements of Don Schuessler's service was he probably served in the most riotous time of Coburg history. We had to lay people off. We had budget problems. We had behavior problems. We had all kinds of issues, and he stuck with it and got through that, got us through that. So I think it's only appropriate to remember Don here and his wife, and our condolences to her, and where the community is helping her to get through that. And we will miss Don. He was just a rock steady person that nothing but integrity, retired from EPD. He just got things done. And it will be appreciated because he did get us through some really, really tough times. So thanks to the Schuessler family for their service. Sammy, agenda review?
Hey, thank you. I've kind of emailed it to people as we switch this from an in-person to mostly a Zoom meeting tonight. So there will be a red folder item on the city meetings file on our website. So if you didn't get one of these documents, you can reference it there. You can also pick copies up at City Hall. I have 4 things for the red folder being added to the agenda. We have ex parte letters that'll be read into the record during agenda item number 4 from Mayor Smith, Councilor McConnell, and Councilor Lehman. I also have a email correspondence with a question and answer from Councilor Lehman regarding the annexation and a response from our legal. And that's it.
Thank you, Sammy. I want to go back to my comments, and I forgot to mention that don't forget, councilors, that we're having our council retreat February 5th. It's an important time for us to be able to communicate with the department heads and city administrator and determine our goals and priorities are going to go, and set up for the upcoming budget year so that we can move forward with our budget priorities. At this time, I'm hoping that our staff, we don't have our red folder items with us, but I know they're working on getting those to us, and we shouldn't need those for a few minutes here. I'm going to take citizen testimony for tonight. Signed up to speak, we have Kevin Dwyer and Andrew Hayes. Kevin Dwyer.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, Kevin.
You, Mayor, and thank you for letting me speak once again relating to the proposed annexation. So once again, I'm here representing, excuse me, the Diamond Ridge Water Association, which is our group of residents on the eastern side of I-5. And wanted to reiterate that we do continue to oppose the zoning change of the property under consideration as light industrial. I really was moved by your speech today for the state of the city, because a lot of the issues that I have and we have was mentioned very movingly, is that we all moved here because we loved Coburg. Well, I mean, I certainly do, and because it is a quaint, quiet, beautiful town and not highly industrialized. We don't feel that light industry fits with Coburg's current character. If we feel if the property must be developed, the zoning as campus industrial would better address the city and state needs for jobs while preserving Coburg's desirability as a place to visit, live, and work. That's better. So it's kind of curious as to what the Heritage Committee says about such changes. In addition, you mentioned the access to I-5 corridor as one of the good points of the city, and also one of the major selling points for designation as an urban growth boundary. And such, we feel that the improvement of the overpass is critical and should be tied to any development in and around Coburg. The current traffic study shows that the expectation over the next 10 to 15 years is for a 10x increase in traffic over this bridge, which probably will translate through the rest of the city. And it seems ridiculous to force the amount of traffic over a 2-lane overpass with inadequate turn lanes, which is obviously past its useful lifespan. Why would Coburg wish to develop the property without concurrent replacement of the bridge? Why can't the state find funding for the overpass and the decaying part of Van Dyne Road from the bridge to the development property? And what does the Coburg Police and Fire Department feel about having such a decayed overpass that they will now have to support when they travel over to the annexed property? Certainly, evacuation in case of fire will be a huge issue. We've already stated that we hope that no trees will be removed from this property. If it's zoned as campus industrial, additional trees and landscaping would be added to preserve the rural feel of Coburg. Has there been any input from the Parks and Trees Department? This is, after all, the tree city. Will current and future water needs be supported if the drought conditions continue? Light industrial could use an inordinate amount of water compared to residential areas. And we need to consider that in the future. And just one of the weird things that happened last week was with the rains that we had. I don't know if you all got to that side of the bridge, but the feeder creek into Muddy Creek was overflowing. And if you calculate the amount of rainfall over the 107 acres, 1 inch of rain, which we had almost every day, equals 9 acre feet, or almost 3 million gallons of water that are running off of that property if it's paved over. And this will all be polluted water. I don't know what the plans are for handling that. When ODOT presented last year, their plans for the the overpass, it included a catchment pond and treatment facility to handle such polluted runoff. If this isn't funded or taken care of or developed jointly, what will happen to, downstream, and where will this water go? Anyway, these are just many of the concerns that we were trying to bring forward to the council and hope that they decide not to change the zoning to light industrial, but rather campus industrial. Coburg deserves better than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. Andrew Hayes. Not sure if Andrew made it. He's not familiar with using Zoom. Seeing, okay. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's here. Have written testimony, as Sammy said, from Dwyer Hayes, and that was included in the red folder packet. Do you have any responses from the testimony from counselors? I would like to make a statement. Mr. Dwyer brought up a few things. I'll kind of work them from the most recent to the earliest. The wastewater is part of our master plan development requirement that they would have to engineer and take care of any drain wastewater that comes in from any development in that property. Input from Parks and Tree. Our process dictates that Parks and Tree has input to all master plan developments. They've actually had input even before this annexation. I believe they even met with the developer to give their concerns for that property. The one thing that I want to indicate, I talked about how committees and our people are very knowledgeable about zoning, our development code. The one thing that I think is really important to note is light industrial is not necessarily a blanket development standard. Coburg has a light industrial. We have several restrictions that are not in other people's light industrial. I think a lot of the things that we look at, and I know the focus on our light industrial was to eliminate what we call big box development, big box buildings. And we have a small footprint requirement in our development code. So our light industrial doesn't really compare to a lot of other light industrials. Even given that, we have a master plan process that they will have to come before the citizens, the planning commission and council to have that master plan approved. And there will be significant input, I'm sure, for citizen involvement in that too. As far as the I-5 interchange, the bridge over I-5 at Coburg is one of the top 4 priorities for transportation investment in the Central Lane metropolitan area. And believe me, I'm trying to keep it right up at the top. My city administrator and myself and a group of our people, including Mr. Marshall, one of the citizens of the year, we're trying to write a solid script on how we're going to deal with this and be the mouse that roars when you look at Coburg between Eugene and Springfield and Lane County, trying to get that bridge updated. So there's a lot of contingencies, and I feel once again that Coburg has done a lot of good planning and a lot of put a lot of controls in to not have an eyesore for a light industrial development. Councilors, do you have any questions? I see an iPad is all I see. Councilor Blaine?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mayor. The amount of time and effort, the council and the committees put into addressing all those issues.
Blaine, we can't hear you. It's garbled.
Is that any better?
A little bit. You're still garbled, but I can hear your words.
Okay. Yeah, I was just saying that I agree with pretty much everything you said on that property.
That's not working, Councilor Blaine. I'm sorry. Let's see if you can fix that. And I'm going to move over to Councilor Lehman.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So just a clarification on tonight's agenda, we're going to be perhaps voting on the annexation and light industrial tonight. Are we going to be having opportunities to ask questions about the staff report and the findings prior to a vote?
Yes, that's standard procedure.
Okay. All right. In terms of the gentleman's comments, I just feel a little bit rushed in making a decision tonight. I just asked the question, are we on time restraints to have a vote on this evening versus any additional discussion beyond tonight's meeting?
I know there is some concern. We have delayed this process a couple of times already. And I think probably the key element to it would be the developer's investment in this. Beyond that, I would look for an answer from, is Henry on?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here. Yeah, so an annexation and concurrent rezone is not tied to a 120-day rule, so there's technically no timeline that the city has to follow. However, the applicant should probably be afforded, a reasonable decision within a reasonable time.
And what does that mean?
Well, the city has to make a decision on it at some point. It's not tied to the 120 days, so they could take more time if they needed to, but a decision does have to be made.
Any other questions from counselors? Counselor Alexander.
I'm going along with Councillor Lehman. I feel a little bit rushed. I do have some more questions. I'd love to hear what the findings have been. And I appreciate what Mr. Dwyer has said. And I know that we have to make a decision. That's perfectly understood. But I am feeling that we're kind of pushing a little bit. And I know this is quite a decision, especially for not just for our city, but for the homes that are adjacent to the changes that are going to be happening. So I'm not sure what I'm putting out there, but that's kind of my feeling.
Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Councillor McConnell.
So I too am feeling rushed, and it's partly because a Zoom meeting is so difficult to really get all of our questions answered. I think this is a really, really difficult process. I've gone through the proposal. I've looked at the last piece that I looked at was the planning commissioner's report and some concerns they had about the way we were making our decisions. And I really feel like this is rushing it. This to me is one of the biggest things that is going to be before us in the next few years. And I'm concerned about that.
Sir Blaine.
Can you hear me any better?
That's much better.
Okay. Yeah, I was saying I agreed with what the mayor was saying. It's been a long process, a couple of years working on this particular piece of property. I went and did the walkthrough, went and looked at it, met the owners and the folks that want to develop it and change it. The fact that we've already put all the utilities and that's all moving onto the freeway. I mean, we've established the fact that this is kind of where we want to go and what fits. I definitely understand the concern for that neighborhood up above on Diamond Ridge and the concern for the freeway. I think that's all 100% something that we need to figure out with the state and get that adjusted as quick as possible and get that moving forward. But that being said, that property has been earmarked for a long time for something like this. I think the staff and the commissions and all the people involved has kind of gotten us to this point where, we've had a few readings of this and, I think it's time to move forward. I totally understand where the other counselors are coming from and I'm happy to continue the conversation. But ultimately, I think, we've kind of done most of the work and understand the process and what the give and take really is. But ultimately, I believe Raymond Fisher has said multiple times that nothing happens for a long period of time. Everything that does happen there is going to be brought to the city to discuss and see what moves forward and what doesn't. So I think that's, having that partnership with them is going to make this project, work and fit for our community. So that's just my thought.
Councilor Fox.
Well, I was curious about how much we had delayed it, but my concerns, and maybe we'll talk about it when it's open, as I've put out and I talked about being in the small town after being in two very brightly lit big cities they can see from outer space, and light in addition to the size of the industrial and the buildings. I'm concerned about 45-foot high light poles and how many would fit in the acres there and the amount of light pollution in addition to everything else. So that's a concern of mine.
Mary Darnell.
Mr. Mayor, it's legal's feeling that this discussion should be occurring under agenda item 4. We're getting too close to deliberations and discussion of maybe some merits, and it's really not appropriate to be discussing that under citizen comment. Those comments, in fact, are not part of the record because you did not keep the substantive record open and continue to this hearing.
Instruction is there was response only to the citizens' input, and we're debating the
You do
issue.
not have to respond to the citizens. And if you do, you should respond on this issue under agenda item 4, which is open for deliberations.
Okay. We're still in the citizen testimony, and I believe Andrew Hayes is up. He was the iPad identification. I'll allow him to give testimony, citizen testimony, and then we'll move forward.
Mayor, it looks like Andrew Hayes is having problems. Oh, there he is.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. My name is Andrew Hayes, and I'm a former resident of down in Mill Street in Coburg. I now live at 90576 Diamond Ridge Loop. And we previously discussed the compelling reasons why we thought that putting potentially unsightly and obnoxious sort of smelling industrial operations in the middle of a residential area is not a good idea. Other cities limit that adjacency. And in fact, Coburg itself has done a great job. There's virtually no conflict between residential and industrial components. We also ID'd the fact that the area north of Van Dyne would be much better suited for light industrial. And more recently, we testified as to the many environmental advantages of campus industrial zoning. Basically, it makes a better neighbor to residential occupancy. Now, are there any disadvantages to designating campus industrial zoning for south of Van Dyne? Well, from an environmental standpoint, not really. But from an implementation standpoint, it's almost certainly going to take more time to find the sort of businesses that are attracted to campus industrial, as opposed to the current high demand for the typical light industrial operations. However, when you look closely at the reality of any development, it's going to be constrained by the limits of the traffic that's generated, the I-5 Van Dyne interchange. Sorting that out and upgrading the infrastructure, including the overpass, is going to take a long time. And of course, the process of expanding the urban growth boundary, annexing north of Van Dyne, should you elect to do that for light industrial, will take some time. So from a practical standpoint, these three activities would simply take place concurrently. Transportation infrastructure upgrades would proceed. Business development south of Van Dyne would occur with campus industrial, and annexation and light industrial development north of Van Dyne, should the city elect to do that, would also take its course. Accordingly, we urge the city to take a long view of what will be best for Coburg. Proceed with the current annexation with a designation of campus industrial. Proceed with annexation of an area north of Van Dyne for light industrial, and aggressively work on encouraging the infrastructure upgrade. I think that this longer view of things, when the clock advances and we're all looking at this in 10 or 15 years, you'll find that Coburg will be a much better place if you follow these recommendations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
I'll stay in the meeting, yeah.
Mary Darnell, do you have any other further clarification before we move on?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you. But we're going to move forward to the consent agenda. We have a contract with Lane County to provide low-income housing household water assistance. And the minutes for the December 2021 City Council. Councilors may remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion by requesting such action prior to this consideration. Is there any such request to remove anything? Councilor Lehman.
Just a clarification on minutes, just a minor clerical error.
Okay.
Page 31. Item 9 under Coburg Main Street update. It was attributed to me as the person who endorsed many of the ideas presented. That was probably another counselor. And then also under number 10, it was attributed to me that I wanted money to be spent in ways that benefited all Coburg under the American Recovery Funds update. I think that was attributed to some other counselor. I see him waving his hand, actually.
Both of them are me.
Thank you. I've noted those changes, Mayor. So Counselor Lehman will be changed to Counselor Alexander, if you agree.
Also, I have two more.
Go ahead, Counselor Alexander.
On the minutes, page 4, Councilor Alexander questioned why the proposed zoning had been changed from campus industrial to light industrial. I don't think I said that. And then also the next page, Councilor Alexander asked if it was possible to have a light industrial model with some of the requirements of the campus industrial. I also didn't say that.
That was me.
So they were switched.
So those will be changed to Counselor Lehman.
With 2 N's.
I got it. Thank you.
Other corrections or requests? I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to accept the consent agenda as with the changes indicated as presented.
Second.
I second.
Sir McConnell, thank you. Motion by Counselor Bell and a second by Counselor McConnell to approve the consent agenda with amendments. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Special guest tonight, we have a Planning Commission report from one of the Citizens of the Year, Commissioner John Marshall. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to quickly review what the Planning Commission goals were for 2021. What we wanted to do is obtain and participate in some trainings on land use in Oregon, including public meetings laws, ethics laws, and any timely and relevant topics that may come up throughout the year. For 2, we also wanted to do a better job and enhance our communication with the city staff, city council, and the other committees within the city. Number 3, we really wanted to stay in tune and stay informed on the city, including for the annual budget updates, city council goals and priorities, and the work and the goals of the other committees, as well as reports from various city departments, so we could stay in tune and be consistent with those groups. I'll jump into the annual report now. Our first meeting in January, we set the 3 goals that I just went through. Also in January, the commission met and reviewed findings for the Weichert subdivision, I believe titled Coburg Creek, which was subsequently approved and passed on to City Council. In February, the members of the Planning Commission participated in a joint work session with the city focused on the annexation processes that we're currently going through. At the March 2021 Commission meeting, approval was granted to the Kendall Auto Site. I believe that's their collision and repair business that they brought in. And a lot of discussion surrounded this request was the included traffic impact study, which seems to be a big topic within the city of Coburg, and which is something that I'll get into a little bit later. The April 2021 meeting of the commission was focused on training in Oregon land use planning, planning law process, and some of this training was continued at the following May meeting. In May, the meeting included several reports and updates to the commission, namely the transportation system plan update, and we continue to receive some training on the transfer system plan, what it is and what its purpose is. We also had an update on the annexation and zone change application, which is currently being discussed. And we also got a status and progress report on the Coburg Creek subdivision. The planning commission did not meet in June through September, although the members of the planning commission did participate in a joint work session with city council in July of 2021, focused on the Coburg transportation system plan. A lot of discussion over our transportation system. At the October 2021 meeting, the commission held elections for officers. Paul Thompson and Bill Woods remained in their respective positions of chairman and vice chairman. The commission also interviewed and recommended to city council appointment of an applicant, Alan Wells, for an open seat on the commission. I believe he has been accepted. Is that correct? Also, in another meeting, the planning commission participated in a joint work session with the city council focused on the upcoming annexation request and the annexation agreement. The November 2021 commission consisted of a staff report, testimony, a public hearing, and written as well as oral public testimony on the Raven Ventures Harley Hackett annexation and zone change request. After review, discussion of findings, the commission unanimously moved to recommend approval to the city council for the annexation and the rezoning of the lot as light industrial. Finally, at the December 2021 meeting, the commission reviewed this report for me to basically present to city council and work on its goals and work plan in general for 2022. Areas that we're going to be discussing in January to set our goals, again, is the master plan development process, which is going to be key going forward. And we also like to get training on traffic impact studies. That's that big thick book that we seem to get that nobody really understands. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to point out that at all of our meetings, the Planning Commission has received updates, status reports from the city administration on any significant work of the city council, city departments, any ongoing projects that's going on in other city committees. The staff has done an excellent job of keeping the commission informed and allowing us time to answer any of our questions that we may have. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Marshall. It's pretty obvious that most everybody knows that was one of my main goals as mayor was to get this communication happening between our committees and council and have that two-way communication be beneficial to both sides. And I'm glad to hear that Commissioner Marshall appreciates that update of not just planning commission relative issues, but what's going on in the city. So I think that just reinforces that we need to keep doing that and make it better. council comments regarding the planning commission. Ordinances and resolutions. Or
Ray, you have muted yourself.
not speaking.
Oh, gotcha.
Read the script here and make
Oh.
sense of what I'm trying to do here.
Oh, gotcha.
Sorry about that. Or the annexation process. Annexing territory to the city of Coburg identified as tax lot 00202 of assessors map 16033400 and consisting of 107.43 acres and amending ordinance A 200G to change the Coburg zoning map to rezone said territory from Lane County zoning district exclusive farm use E40 to Coburg zoning district light industrial. Prior to the presentation of the staff report and the second reading of ordinance A 200, we need to open a public hearing to dispose of several reported ex parte contacts. I hereby open this public hearing for the express purpose of addressing announced ex parte contacts. It is 7:37. This public hearing will be conducted in the following manner. The affected individuals will inform the public of the nature of their ex parte contacts to the best of their ability. The next step, the affected individual shall make a declaration as to whether their ex parte contact has adversely affected their ability to apply the approval criteria in an unbiased or impartial nature. And finally, there will be an opportunity for the public to challenge the impartiality or accuracy of the direct declarations of the affected individuals. And I will begin. I want to declare an ex parte contact, as I find my documents. As mayor, I attended a meeting that took place on the proposed property adjacent to Van Dyne Road on February 17th, 2021. There are approximately 4 property owners whose homes were adjacent to the property to be annexed. We introduced the property owners to the developer, discussed the annexation process, and discussed the possibilities for the buffer zone in order to retain the tree line. The property owners shared their concerns with the developer. There was also some discussion regarding the I-5 overpass and timing of its replacement. The city's purpose for the meeting was to make introductions and clarify process questions on annexation. This ex parte contact produced no prejudice, and I am capable of providing an impartial decision on the application. See, the next declaration is Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. I do not have a copy of what I sent to Sammy, but my ex parte communication happened on December 18th. That was a Saturday. At the IOOF hall where I was one of the participants in the holiday market, and I was in a booth next to Ms. Dwyer, and we introduced ourselves and visited, and then she told me who she was and talked to me a little bit about her concerns about the development. And I explained to her that I was a city councilor and that I could not really get into a discussion with her. And we basically ended the conversation and went on to other subjects. So it was a very brief conversation. And I do not believe it will affect me in my decision one way or the other.
Counselor McConnell, Counselor Lehman.
Yes, I had an ex parte conversation with John and Colleen Marshall on December 31st. I'm impartial and able to deliberate on this fairly.
Counselor Lehman. Is there anyone else that would like to declare an ex parte contact? Anybody have a question as to what ex parte contact is so that they can clarify this? Mr. Darnielle, have we met what you suspect is our needs on our declaration?
You need to ask any of the public if they wish to challenge the individuals who made their declarations.
Right. Okay, is there anyone who would like to challenge the impartiality or accuracy of the declarations of the affected individuals? One more time, because Zoom is hard to deal with. Is there anybody that wishes to challenge the impartiality or accuracy of the declarations of the affected individuals regarding ex parte contact? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close this hearing at 7:43. Henry, staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there's no real staff report tonight. Tonight is preparation for reading of the second reading of the ordinance. So I prepared agenda item 4 for you tonight. So staff is requesting city council action on 3 items related to the annexation and rezone. We prepared the approval of the findings for the annexation, land use file ANX 0120 and land use file ZC 0120, findings in support of the rezone. And we've also drafted the ordinance A200J for you tonight. As you can see in your packet, we've outlined 3 motions in total. And we're all pretty aware of the background of this application, so I won't belabor that. But the findings, they were presented to Planning Commission in November. They recommended approval of them. The only change was we added the discussion of Industrial Policy 7, and that has been added to the findings. And the findings have not changed since you last reviewed them at your public hearing in December. So the staff recommendation is that City Council approve the land use file ANX 0120 and adopt the findings in support of approval, and land use file ZC 0120 and the findings in support of approval and adoption of the ordinance A200J. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Henry. Any discussion from councilors regarding land use ANX 0120? Councilor Lehman.
So I'd like some additional explanation or information concerning 2 statements under goal 2 on page 56.
Let me navigate to page 56 real quick. Okay, 56. So goal 2, land use interpretation of comprehensive plan map policy 7.
My question under the first paragraph of finding, the very last sentence where it says conversely, staff also believe it reasonable to find that a plan designation of light industrial can be implemented through the campus industrial zoning designation. Can you clarify a little more on that statement?
Yeah, so this was in consultation with DLCD. It's not unreasonable to think that a plan designation, which is what the property is zoned now, cannot be implemented through a zoning of campus industrial. So like I said in the staff report, there are 2 options available, light industrial and campus industrial. But staff believe one is better than the other, and that's light industrial.
So the staff believes that it is reasonable to have a designation of campus industrial that can be implemented instead of the light industrial.
Well, kind of backwards. The plan designation of light industrial, a zoning of campus industrial is reasonable to implement a designation of light industrial. So
under paragraph
there are
4,
2 options available. Okay,
under
paragraph 4.
When it says when the use does not require a permit from the air quality public agency, that same qualifier does not appear in the light industrial zone. So it is something that can be handled through the master plan, as I understand. And I guess I want to have some more assurances how the city can enforce that under the master plan.
Well, the city will have, so the city will have access to review the master plan, but also that language really will come into play during the referral notice for any land use development, in which DEQ will get involved and they will review the proposal against the air quality standards, and they will issue comment, and the applicant will be required to adhere to the DEQ air quality mission standards, which are implemented through LaRapa in Lane County. So that's how that would play out.
And I had another comment under page 61.
Page 61.
When we've been talking about fire and police services are available to the subject property once annexed into the city limits, and the criterion was met, was this with the current levels for the full development or at the undeveloped condition that's currently there?
I'm not entirely sure. I think I relied more upon like city staff to fill that in. I was given no indication that police and fire availability would be a concern over there.
Just that,
but I don't know if Andy
that there
wants
was
to
going to
chime
be
in.
current levels of police and fire sufficient to handle the full development, or was this going to be an additional expense down the road? I just wondered whether the discussion was the current police and fire was sufficient for the full development.
I don't have a good answer for you, Counselor. I don't know if the police chief is on the line or if Ann Heath wants to add to that.
I believe that property is in the current fire district right now. So that whether or not that would be increased expenses on the fire district, I can't answer that. For the city, that is, I mean, there will be probably more patrol over there. Whether or not that means more officers, it depends on how it goes, how much patrol it needs. But the properties will be paying additional property taxes. There will be revenues received. And so in the event that further policing is needed over there, those properties would be paying their share of that.
speak from experience that when and if fire is asked if they provide coverage, yes, they do. As developments come forward, because it will be a master plan development, that question will be asked in the master plan process as to whether they can provide service to the proposal. And so
That's right. And I'd also like, oh,
and so again, like Ann said, as they would look at it, they would look at the taxes and stuff to see if that would offset staffing and equipment needs for that master plan.
thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to add, similar to DEQ's involvement, the fire chief is also involved in the referral process. So they receive a copy of the plans and they look at it against their fire code and the regulations, and then they submit those comments back to the city. And the applicant, works those comments with the fire chief into their development. How that works.
So Lehman.
Comment under page 67. We've had discussion that it seems the council did not want to just simply have warehouses in this light industrial zone. But yet, under the finding, it says one notable difference between the permitted uses is that light industrial zone permits distribution centers such, whereas the campus industrial prohibits them. And I'm assuming under the distribution center, that would qualify as a warehouse or could be a warehouse.
I don't know. I don't want to get into the defining of definitions at this point. I don't have a good answer for you.
You don't want to define what a distribution center is?
I think it would depend on what is being proposed. What are the uses being proposed and how they relate to a distribution center. I don't think we can get into hypotheticals at this point.
Well, this isn't a hypothetical. It states here that light industrial zone permits distribution centers, whereas campus industrial prohibits them. That's not a hypothetical.
I think I can only point to what the code says with respect to the prohibition of distribution centers and the permittance of them.
I'm just making a comment that it seems like we don't want to have warehouses, but campus industrial would prohibit it, whereas light industrial would permit it.
So Lehman, this is a question that pops up in land use and specific uses for zoning. We've had this discussion over truck stops. What is the definition of a truck stop? Is it an automotive rest center or is it a truck stop? And I think this could go down that rabbit hole pretty quickly. One of the things that Coburg has done is, again, to avoid what they called the big box, which was the discussion in our last updates, big box buildings. They minimized the footprint of the building so they couldn't have these humongous, like a concrete tilt-up building or a large warehouse. So again, a light industrial distribution center may have a specific definition somewhere, but Coburg has its own definitions in many of these things. So it's not a black and white. Any other questions from councilors? Councilor McConnell? See you trying. There we go.
There, whoa. This would be, one of my questions is a kind of a follow-up to John's on that same page, page 67. Although campus industrial zone does not allow uses that require an air quality permit, the industrial, light industrial does. And I am concerned about that. I don't know if it's a question or just a concern that, again, we are looking at something that definitely concerns me. And then my other question is there a reason why we are considering this to be an light industrial when we do have the possibility of, on the north side of Van Dyne Road, another piece of property that would definitely be light industrial, maybe even not light industrial. Is there a reason that Planning Commission did not go with the campus industrial for this area? Is it strictly because it's going to be more difficult for the owner of the property to find tenants for light industrial than campus industrial?
So the first answer to your question is that area north of Van Dyne is outside of the UGB, and that area was excluded during the urbanization study that Kohlberg undertook years ago to find out which area to bring into the UGB. So study area 8, which is the property, was selected. So that no development is going to occur in that property if it's outside of the UGB. And the answer to your second question, so Planning Commission accepted the findings, the staff report, which outlined the reasons why light industrial was selected over campus industrial. And those, they're in the staff report, but they relate to the certain policies that were identified in the code itself. And those were such as on page 2 of the development code, it outlines interpretation of district boundaries. And I'm trying to locate it right now, but essentially it says if the land is planned such, it shall be zoned as such. So when you look at that, it's planned light industrial. That means it should be zoned light industrial, and that's in your development code on page 2. And then there's also policies in your development code that help, that it's my belief and my opinion that are intended to help guide you through this process. It says the comprehensive plan map is intended to guide zoning. Therefore, you look at the comprehensive plan map, it's designated light industrial. That's intended to guide the future zoning, which would be light industrial. So Planning Commission accepted the findings that were in there, and that's how they came to their conclusion.
As a follow-up, even though it is adjacent residential.
Correct. The area adjacent is residential, but outside of the UGB and is in Lane County. It's it might be zoned. I think it's probably some rural residential under Lane County. And that's why that open space buffer is so important, to provide those buffers between residential districts or uses and industrial uses. And that's precisely what's being proposed.
Councilor Lehman?
Yes, can you restate or rephrase what you said in terms of if something was recommended to be light industrial or was
sure, it's
expected to be approved, then why are we voting on this if we don't really have a vote on it? If it's already something.
No, so what I'm saying is that's my interpretation of it, and that's what I would propose to you. That's how and it's up for you to accept that or not. But I believe the development code itself offers you some hints at how you should zone this. And
I don't appreciate that being hinted at how I should vote on this. It's the way it's coming across to me.
Sure.
Some clarification here. This is not a process that has taken 1 year. We're into 10 years on this. I was in the initial discussion when the comp plan and everything else was being built around this, and we determined whether 8 or 9 would be usable for the urban growth boundary. Those were all hard, serious discussions at that time. And to
So it's on page 48, and that's subsection I under Article 4. So I'm simply pointing out the things that exist in your code and offering a response and a proposed finding for you to accept or reject or modify. And that's all the findings are.
And to answer to Councilor Lehman's question, why are we voting? Well, we do get to vote. We get to decide that. But I just want to make it clear that this was a well thought out, well planned process from the beginning as to what we thought would be most beneficial to the city and the services that we could provide, and whether that tax base would be supportive and beneficial to the city. And it is up to us now to make that decision as to whether we want to go with these, and we can make that decision. So I have Councilor Fox and then Councilor McConnell.
Sorry. Since there was 10 years in this, why did light industrial be embraced over campus industrial?
So again, just my personal recollection in the discussion, we looked at it, and the discussion came about to take this land on because Coburg had about a 20 to 26 acre requirement, according to our studies, for land in a light industrial. While we were looking at the different lots, this 107 acres, and then the one to the north, I believe, was lot 9 or scenario 9 that had almost twice that much acreage, I think. I don't know, significantly more acres. Looking at it, first of all, we looked at it and said infrastructure would be easier to put in on the current property. It also was smaller. It was lower class soils for farmland. We had appeals and opponents looking at it, and they accepted that property as the best suitable land to annex and create light industrial. And I think, again, this is my personal opinion, I believe that probably the biggest sway to that was when we looked at the regional need for this property. And that regional need was for 20 acre lots of light industrial. And we did our calculations through population and job basis. That regional need, we could provide for 30% of Lane County regional need. And again, I'm trying to recall this, so my numbers may be off a little bit. And we took that on. We took that 30% regional need in addition to our 26 acres that we needed with or without the regional aspect of it. While we looked at that, we had the state economic development, and I can't tell you which exact branch or whatever, but they came down and told us light industrial would be the best and easiest to recruit the high quality people that we would hope to get in our plan. And I think personally, that was the clincher for that council way back then to make that decision that we wanted to put it in the comp plan that this was light industrial. My personal recollection. You guys get to make a decision tonight. I see Councilor Blaine is up after Patty McConnell.
So I respect the fact that a lot of time and years have been put into this. But in the meantime, we have things have changed out here in Coburg, and we are a very vibrant, small town. I don't see where light industrial is going to add new patronage, new citizens to Coburg. We don't have any housing for people who would be working at a light industrial zone. And lost my thought, but oh, I know, sorry, I wrote a note here. The air quality thing is a really big deal for me. The fact that campus industrial or light industrial does not have the same qualifications as the campus industrial. And we've been through that with the industrial park that we have on the other side of the freeway. We know what that means. We know the problems we've had with air quality controls out here. And I lived right down the street from it. I know the impact that had on people in our community. So those are my concerns.
And I would just like to address that, Councilor McConnell, that, you know, that was a tough, hard process, and then Coburg passed some ordinances to deal with that in that zoning. And again, we have that option in whatever we pick as far as the zoning. We can change the zoning requirements. They aren't statewide, they're Coburg. And so we have learned from those things, and we can address those. The one question that I do have, and then we have Councillor Blaine and then Councillor Fox, but Henry, I'd like to ask you about the DEQ requirement in the campus industrial. It's my understanding that no matter what goes in, whether it's light industrial or campus industrial, it has to go to DEQ. But what is that?
That is correct. DEQ. Sorry, that last part I missed, Mayor.
I just wanted to clarify why that designation, why that statement is in there if both of them have to be cleared through DEQ.
I don't have a good answer for you. When we spoke, so we held meetings with DEQ, and they were surprised that language was in there, and they recommended to myself and Ann that the city look at removing that, because not other cities have that, and that's not very commonplace. But I don't have a good answer for you as why that's in there. I have not seen that before.
But it's in there.
It just seems like it's something that kind of got drug along and never was removed, because I know DEQ requirements for all these large commercial or light industrial or campus or light industrial has to go through DEQ and a permit process, and so it just doesn't seem right to me. So Councillor Blaine.
Yeah, so kind of getting back to the mayor's points about the council that kind of went through the building code, the planning. You know, that I was on that council, and that took a lot of effort. That was a long time. We talked to the state, we talked to the county, we talked to everybody involved. And a lot of those people have obviously, they want things to move forward. We understand that the state needs the space, the county needs the space, but at the same time, we are bringing utilities over there. We've brought them over there. We've established that we've already going to annex them for the most part with this council. If we change the requirement to campus industrial, the last thing I want to see is that property just sit because we can't fill it. We do all this work, we spend all this time and money and effort, and then we don't have any tenants, any owners in that property, and it's not producing. It's just a vacant property with all these utilities. I think we're kind of missing the point a little bit about the deep dive that everybody took on this over the last 5-6 years, and the amount of effort and time to even get to this place to have this on our desks. You know, we've all looked at it multiple times, but I think that based on who the people are, the codes we have in there, the ability to kind of adjust and adapt as we move forward. I think we've done the due diligence to the point where it makes sense to move forward with that need, the light industrial need, which is a huge need for our county and our state. And, you know, we have Industrial Way that has lots of light industrial on there, and it's no different than putting it right where it's located. I think the only difference is above them, there's residential housing. I think the buffers The height of them, above the subject property is significant. And if you look down at Industrial Road, there is homes that are near that and can hear those sites and are part of that. And it's unfortunately in a small town, that's kind of part of the deal. You can't hide from businesses, and it makes sense to me to continue to move forward with what we have here, the amount of time and effort, research, and knowledge that have been put into this to leave it as light industrial, use the utilities we have, and get that full and usable space within our city that's going to provide a nice tax base. It's going to provide opportunities for jobs locally. It's going to help benefit Main Street and the downtown core. Obviously, these people are going to travel in and out. That freeway is an issue, but I think based on the timeline, it's going to take a while for this development to even get there. And that'll help push the state to move forward faster, in my opinion. So yeah, that's all I have.
Councilor Fox and then Councilor Alexander.
I have 2 points, and then I have a question for, I guess, Gary Darnell. One is the size of the warehouses are limited, but it is to 250,000 square feet, which is no small building. And again, the light issues is a big concern of mine. Even within Coburg on the street plans, I would like lower lights. I've mentioned that many times. So having the limit on light poles of 45 feet, I just see light pollution in addition to Councilor McConnell's air concerns. So my question for Gary Darnell is, within the 3 motions that are recommended, can a councilor vote to annex but not vote on the light industrial?
Well, it's my understanding, and Ann and Henry can correct me if I'm wrong, if you don't designate a zone, I think the zoning becomes automatic according to the plan designation if you don't otherwise designate a different zone. Is that not correct, Henry?
Well, I would suggest that, that might be the case, and that's kind of those policies and guidelines I outlined that are in your development code. That may be what they suggest. Like the policy where the plan designation is intended to guide zoning, and if a property is planned as such, it shall be zoned automatically as such. Those types of things exist in the development code.
The plan, the comprehensive plan, has 2 industrial designations: light industrial and campus industrial. The zoning district has a light industrial and campus industrial zoning district. The plan map designates the property as light industrial. The council had the option of designating the property as campus industrial at the time that it changed the comprehensive plan. It chose to designate it as light industrial. I think that's what Henry was saying. That's an indication of the intent of the council, at least at the time that property was brought into the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. That makes it clear for me. Thank you.
Councilor Alexander. Councilor Alexander.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you call me. For the planning, is this a question for the Planning Commission? What requirements, codes, insurances do we have that make light industrial more attractive than campus? That's part of the question. Second question that goes along with that is, did we make the decision to be light industrial because of the fear of what could happen if it was campus?
I'm sorry, this is Henry. I'm not sure I can answer that question, or I'm not the Planning Commission. Or I don't believe that
That's
one
really-
commissioner's
that-
intended tonight.
Right. And that's really what my question is what is making this what made it more attractive? Or is it the fear of the campus?
Well, I don't think there's fear of campus. I think the reason it's the planning commission and the past council made it light industrial is because of the uses available to it and the fact that there's a massive need within our region, and we could fill those buildings and build those buildings and actually get a tax base out of it. I think that was the original idea. Is we have this land that's
Yeah.
available, it's designated. I don't think there was a fear for one.
Is that it would be easier to fill those spaces than a campus? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, because there's a need for it. I don't think there's a need for campus industrial in our local area that relates to light industrial. I think light industrial is a much bigger need for that I-5 corridor.
Are there
Add
codes or requirements in place to protect us from the light industrial that would not be what we want?
I think that's the master plan process. I think that's why you have it, is to control what happens over there. And then that's what the master plan process does.
And those are already in place?
Yes, Coburg has adopted master plan processes in its development code right now. And I believe the Planning Commission, City Council went through 2 recently in the past 5 years or so. I think and Megan, you can chime in, the Coburg Inn was master plan development, and I think Hayden Homes subdivision may have been master planned. Yeah, Coburg has adopted master plan standards.
And States was also a master plan. We have master plans. They allow a lot of input up front to help steer that development the way Coburg wants. I'd like to add a little bit more. I don't think there was ever a fear issue, having watched the Planning Commission meetings. Just following what the comprehensive plan and what the planning had basically led up to, I believe. And I will go back to, this was an investment by the council at that time when they made that decision to go light industrial. We were looking at having to provide utilities, having to get transportation over there. And I think the issue back then was, again, I recall, I think a watershed moment was when a state economic development staffer indicated that light industrial would be the easiest to fill. It would allow you more opportunities. And the Coburg Council at that time, and the Planning Commission for that matter, citizens were looking for a good investment. And they wanted development to occur. If we're going to provide utilities, we're going to annex this property and provide services. They wanted to get an investment on that to help offset our utilities that the residents had just taken on with the sewer system. I think those were all elements that you have to think about as a counselor when we're looking at adding this on. Go back 10 years ago when we're building a sewer system and already have infrastructure issues because we're so small. We've addressed and we've seen development with Monaco and Marathon coming in, and that helped offset that the pressure on our fees to rise. And those are all small elements, I won't say any one of them was huge, but they were all elements that led to that decision way back to go with light industrial to make it the easiest, quickest, most accessible development for the developers and to address what the regional need was, which we were told the regional need was for light industrial. And so we stuck with that.
Does that still apply to Coburg today compared to Coburg then?
Yeah, I think like Kyle Blaine said, Councillor Blaine, I think the economic investment that we've put into this is there's a pressure that we do need to move forward with this and look at this, the investment. And by investment, I say, we haven't put money into this property, but we put a lot of money into consultants, putting together our urban growth boundary process, telling us what our residential and jobs, employment lands needs were, and going through several different scenarios of properties and having long discussions about these and determining which was going to be best for our growth. And one of the decisions was we didn't want to take a bigger property because we didn't want to grow that big. And we didn't want to have to fight the justification for it. And as it was, that UGB process was the one that got appealed and remanded back to us. But the Friends of Lane County, I believe it was, whoever filed the appeal, they looked at it and said, we're fine with that property you selected, this property we're talking about now. We're just have a problem with all the other stuff that you did. So they actually excluded this property from the appeal in our UGB. You know, we could write a book about this all night long about the history, but I want to give you guys some perspective as to what I feel happened back then. Councilor Lehman.
You know, so I appreciate the comments we've heard about the regional need. And I also appreciate the local Coburg need. And in the past, we've done, I know there's been opportunities for citizens input, but in the past, when we've done surveys regarding our increased tax for gasoline and our increased tax for street improvements, we've done extensive citizen surveys. Have we done any citizen surveys at all about light industrial versus campus industrial?
My knowledge, there's been no survey specific to that, Councilor Lehman. However, the public process that we went through for the justification of UGB lands to expand our UGB lands was multiple public hearings with lots of input. There was lots of input in on this, and that's
was input on campus versus light industrial.
Pardon me?
Was that input on light industrial versus campus industrial, or just UGB and annexation? I just wonder if we skipped a step along the way here.
No, it was employment lands and determining, and I'm not real strong on my memories of this, but it was employment land discussion. And I think Coburg's process and decision was we felt that the light industrial, the regional need for light industrial would meet that employment lands requirement that our consultants determined we needed through the state.
I'm just reiterating, I just think that, you know, regional need is one thing, local Coburg need is another thing. And I just wonder if we skipped a step at all in terms of any citizen surveys with regards to discussions about campus industrial versus light industrial, apart from UGB and employment lands in general and annexation in general. Just we've done that in the past where we've gone to the citizens about gas tax increases and street improvement increases, but we've not gone to the effort of surveys for the citizens beyond these public meetings here with input limited as to whether or not what the city wants, what the citizens want.
So I'll address that, and then Councilor Blaine is up. I do know that this was held in a public meeting. The discussion about whether we do light industrial or campus industrial. Again, that's where that state representative for economic development testified, and I think that was one of the swinging elements to that. So there was a public discussion, and I just can't imagine that process went on without more than one meeting discussing that issue. Councilor Blaine.
Yeah, so I mean, to be fair, the Planning Commission is our public input. That's one. Two, doing the UGB and having the state come in, as the mayor said, you know, I was a part of those meetings, and there was a lot of input from citizens and Planning Commission and the counselors. Honestly, I think if we sent out anything to the city and said, all right, here's here's light industrial, here's what this means, here's campus industrial, here's what this means. I'm not sure in just a survey that we could get the citizens to understand the process, what it goes into it, what the real differences are, how to make an educated decision. I mean, that's where when we have those meetings, people need to show up, right? Or we need to have our planning commission out talking to the community members. That's their role in our government. And I think, we did a ton of work on that. So I think having light industrial is what everybody came to the conclusion is the best option for both Coburg and the region.
Councilor Fox?
Yeah, the master plan, at the last meeting, the gentleman who owns the property was talking about coming before the council with a master plan. Does that happen for each business that comes in there? I'm not quite understanding how we would thumbs up or thumbs down the development after today's vote.
Each development.
So
Go
each development and the owner of the property, they will come for a master plan to divide the property first. And then every development after that will come to you as master plan as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Planning is such a complex issue. We have planning commissioners. Thank God we have somebody like John Marshall, who's been on this for 10 years. And if you were to ask him, is he not knowledgeable, fair, very knowledgeable? I bet his answer would be fair. There is so much involved in land use planning. And the public hearing processes that Coburg has gone through, I think have gone above and beyond the state requirements for getting public involvement in this. There's been public involvement in this all the way through, and it's been above and beyond what the mandated requirement for public involvement is. Given that, these are tough issues, and I'll tell you that I think I'm very comfortable with light industrial. I think by the time we get a master plan or anything else, if we see an issue, again, Coburg's light industrial is different than Eugene's light industrial or Cresswell's light industrial, because we get to make our own light industrial. And we have made our own light industrial, referring to the issue with Councillor McConnell and the fumes that we had from the paint shop. We made ordinances that dealt with that and made them fix that issue. We learn our lessons as we go. And I think light industrial, I think a very cooperative developer that appreciates Coburg and has spent a lot of time visiting our Parks and Rec department, dealing with neighbors and answering their questions. I feel comfortable with what we can do with a light industrial. Councilor Lehman.
I hope this is my last comment, but it is public record what the Planning Commission voted. It was not unanimous towards light industrial. There was dissenting vote for supporting campus industrial.
Do that too. Councilor McConnell.
So I have just one more comment that goes back to page 73, the finding. That it talks about to ensure efficient use of land and to provide for livable communities. And frankly, I'm really having a difficult time aligning light industrial with livable communities when we could make the decision to have it be campus industrial. I'm not quite able to get there.
Counselor Alexander?
Even though in the minutes I didn't say what Councilor Lehman said, I do agree. Are there aspects, do we have that control and as a council, as a city, to apply the better parts of the campus to light industrial, to make light industrial prettier and better? And I know you say we have control of what our light industrial looks like, but I'm sure that there are, and I do know that there are plenty of requirements for light industrial that we probably can't change. Is that correct? Or can we add to them? If we can't change, can we add to them to make them, to beautify it, to make it better, take the better aspects of the campus?
Henry?
Was that question directed at me, Mr. Alexander?
Yeah. It was kind of lines what
well,
I
I
was
would
going to say before.
Yeah. So yeah, the like that would fall into the master plan process. But I also like to note that, you know, the code is the code. So the applicant has to meet the requirements of the code. And if the code is not there, then they don't have to meet it. You'd have to amend your code to add certain requirements or standards. But that's really why the master plan process is there. It's kind of a negotiation between the city and the developer to kind of work something out, kind of in between the code, so to speak. That's what the master plan process is for.
So we can change any or all, according to.
I'm not going to go that far. I would not state that. I would have you refer back to the code itself. The code is the code. Whatever the code says is what would apply.
And I guess that brings me right back to the original question I had. Maybe I didn't word it correctly. I don't know. But what insurances do we have, or requirements or codes do we have that makes this light industrial look better than campus? I know that's a general big question. Maybe something that sticks out.
Yeah, I don't know. I have an answer for you. It's more subjective. It's city council discussion more than my opinion.
Okay.
In the master plan, we went through kind of what buildings will look like, and like we did a deep dive and kind of the aesthetics of it. And light pollution was a big one. Nobody wants light shining up in the air. They were supposed to be, you know, face down to the ground, a little lower. And I think all of those things, because they're in that master plan, are things that we can adjust when somebody brings us something. We can be like, okay, that's ugly. It looks like a square brown box, right? Like we can adjust that and be like, you need to add some flair to make it look like it fits in the city of Coburg. And the lighting, we need to cover it and point it to the ground so it's not pointed up into the sky. I remember going through a lot of that through the master plan. So I think, you know, maybe that's something we need to pull back out and everybody read back through and get comfortable with kind of that design look, future design.
Yeah,
look.
I mean, I guess it would be good in a sense, and I'm asking you, Mayor, right now, why does the housing development over there, or the homes, why do the homes over there, why would they prefer campus over light industrial? I know I've heard a few of their reasons, but not enough to really fully understand why they would prefer. I mean, obviously we don't want a big box store, but why would they even sway that way over light industrial?
I've heard comments that they prefer the larger open space. You know, the green space, open space, recreational if recreational is the right word for it, but to have that green space open is one of the things they looked at. I think with our footprint limitations and things that we've looked at before in our master planning, as Henry said, if it's not written in the code, they can build it. So do you sit here and go through a bunch of lists of things and just make this volume of lists of you can't do these things? And what we did was we just put a heavy emphasis on a master plan process where we can, as Henry said, negotiate. And that's exactly what has happened with our master plan developments. We've negotiated with these developers and said, well, Coburg would like to see this. We don't want a bunch of shoebox homes all lined up in a line that looks like a bunch of shoeboxes lined up. We want it to look like a residential neighborhood with some variety. And that was an actual discussion. And you can see the outcome from it. We got some different setbacks and different frontages and different buildings. And I think developers are willing to do that. That's been the Coburg trademark, I think, that we've been able to get these guys while they're in the pen and pencil stage and talk to them, rather than have them come in and pour concrete and then come in and complain and try and get them to jackhammer it out. And so the master plan to me has worked very well. We have gone to the point of where developments have to go before the Parks and Tree Committee to get input. Now, the Parks and Tree Committee can't say, oh, you can't do that and you have to do this, but they can consult and give their input. And that's where the master plan is huge. And I saw Councillor Blaine had his hand up.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I want the same thing that I believe all of you want, is I want something that fits into Coburg. There's green space, there's trees. It fits, our vibe in Coburg. I don't want Coburg to turn into, a big I-5, what's the one with the Woodburn outlets? I don't want it to turn into something like that. I want it to stay small and keep the historic nature of our community. I've been a big proponent of the downtown core and making sure that, we keep that community vibe in our little town. And I think if we can do that through the master plan with this acreage, we can find a happy medium for both, for having an opportunity to have some development while also keeping what Coburg is, what makes Coburg great, which is that community feel and that walkability and that green space and the beauty. And I think, I want that just as bad as anybody else. I don't want Coburg to change in that way. So.
Sir Bell.
I want to keep this short, but I do want to assure other council members and others that I have seen the master plan work when we were when Coburg Crossing or the Hayden Home development was in the discussion phase after it had been approved. The developer had to come to city council and lay out the plan that they had to put in the homes. Even at that point, those of us on city council at that point said, we don't really like the way you're doing X, Y, and Z. Can you do A, B, and C instead? And that developer was like, oh yeah, we can do, it won't cost us anymore. We want to get along with this community. And I feel very strongly that that's the same thing that will happen as we develop the light industrial or the urban growth boundary on
Just want to echo Councillor Blaine, and I guess it really gets down to, as I said in the State of the City, I love Coburg. I have the utmost confidence in our planners, in our planning commission, in our citizens, and right now even our developers. I don't want to see big, ugly buildings. I don't want to see huge traffic snarls. I believe that we have enough controls and we have good citizen input now and through the master plan process and onward to changing code or whatever we need to do. I have the utmost confidence that we'll do this right. There will always be some little hiccup somewhere that we just can't plan for, because like I said, we can't put everything into the code. But the master plan gives us the opportunity to voice what we do want. And I really have yet to see a developer say, no way we can do that. I've been through, I believe, about 5 master plans now. And
I have confidence in that. And that's why I believe the light industrial is the best way to go. It gives more variety to the developer. And we still have that control at the master plan process. Councilor Alexander?
Henry, how long does this process usually take in your experience?
Annexations and rezones are typically a little longer. You know, they're type 4 legislative. This is the longest one that I've ever been involved in. This applicant was submitted, or the application was submitted in September of 2020. Most other ones for similar sized cities, I've done a few in Junction City, 2 to 4 months or so, because they do involve at least 2 public hearings.
Does that applicant have to continue to pay if this is stalled for any reason, or has he paid his, or have they paid their amount, the $13.50?
The applicant has paid the appropriate, the applicant paid the appropriate land use fees for these 2 requests, $13,000.
So now it's just a matter of waiting for him.
Sure.
Have any plans come up that obviously we probably would hear about it? I know that he had mentioned a couple of tenants that were at least just kind of surfacing, I guess not really totally, but a little bit. Has anything else come up with this, with the landowner?
Not to my knowledge.
Would you be the one that would know that?
I don't know. I think so, or the city administrator may, but I haven't been privy to any development plans for that property other than what has already been spoken of.
So, Ann, has there been any other interest that have come forward as far as that piece of ground?
I'm sorry, I can't get my video to go on. The applicant is here tonight. If he's comfortable in answering that. I have not heard any updates for interested parties, but Raymond, I don't know if you're comfortable with answering that question.
Is it okay for me to talk?
Go ahead, Raymond.
Yeah, we do have somebody actually in escrow right now to do 20 acres. They're a local company. I think I've been given permission to give their name at Bigfoot Beverage is who it would be.
For a warehouse or processing center, or can you even talk about that?
It's a processing center, their entire operation. Offices, processing center, everything.
Can they go, and maybe this isn't for you, Raymond, I'm not sure, but can they actually go into there before we do anything with the overpass? I mean, those are big trucks that are going to be going through.
Yeah. Yes, our trip cap, I believe, is, and I don't quote me on exactly numbers because I've got so many numbers floating around, something around 600 to 700 peak PM hours. And I think they would be close to 50 at that time. So that would be about probably 10% of our trip cap.
Okay.
That's right. That's my recollection too. I think the trip cap is 613 PM peak hour trips.
Anything else, Councilor Alexander?
Not right now, no.
Councilor Lehman?
So would Bigfoot be able to operate under campus industrial?
They've told me they wouldn't.
On what grounds or basis?
The 40% open space requirement versus 20%. That's the big deal on that. It'd be almost 8 acres of open space versus 4 on a 20-acre parcel.
Raymond, I think it's landscape is the 2040. The 20
yes.
Open space is regardless.
Yes.
That's what it was. Yep.
So that wouldn't apply if it's open space versus landscape?
No, the property will have 20% open space under light industrial. The requirement is for 20% to be landscaped and 40% under campus industrial. And that's directly from the code.
So that would impact the square footage of the building space.
Correct. I would assume so.
It would impact building space, parking lot, stormwater features, everything that goes into it. It would just wouldn't be enough, and that's big. That's the biggest issue we have with the campus industrial is that for those big pieces of parts, you're basically not using 40% of the space under campus industrial.
Correction, the landscaping area in light industrial is 15%, not 20.
Right.
So it's the distinction between 15% and 10%?
40.
15% and 40%?
That's correct.
Councilor McConnell.
So that means that coming back to the city and working with a master plan, how does the master plan work with something like that? That they already, this company, this would be a distribution center, and this company already has said that they wouldn't be able to work with the regulations for campus. And we're saying, well, it could be a master plan and we could negotiate those things, but with this company, we wouldn't be able to come up with very many negotiations. I feel, I'm, Mr. Fisher, you're in a really tough spot here, and I'm sorry you're listening to this. But I'm concerned. I'm really concerned that we're saying it can go under a master plan development, but we can't really do that.
And what I
Go ahead, Raymond.
what I would just say to that is the way that I've been going about the process of this, if we get light industrial and are ready to do a master plan, which we would probably with Bigfoot, we would probably do pretty quickly, is we would present, we would get from them, it's basically a negotiation between them and the city council, with us almost being an intermediary of trying to make something that's going to work for everybody. Because if we come back and say, hey, by the way, you guys don't like the buffer on the campground side. It's not enough. We need more. We'll go back to their developers and say, or their designers and say, hey, we got to fix this for them. So there's certain parameters that make the campus industrial just not fit for us, being that mostly that 40% requirement. And we've had a lot of inquiries about the property, and not one of them has ever mentioned campus industrial as a possibility. It's always been light industrial, just because of those requirements.
Sir McConnell, just to go with the master plan, you're still under the code, like Henry said. We're under the code requirement for whatever zone. And even with a master plan, negotiating with them is one thing, but changing and going directly against the code is another. Councilor Lehman.
Is the master plan approved by city council or by city staff?
Council.
Staff.
By the council?
City council.
Okay.
I would say you're not going to be done with it if we get this done.
Yeah, I would preface this with, I've never done a master plan for Coburg, and I don't think Megan has either. I believe there's a two-step process. I think it's a planning commission review for one level and then city council for the other level. But I would refer you to the master plan requirements themselves. But there are two levels, planning commission review and city council review.
And all of the large master plans, residential, have come through council. Councilor Alexander.
to kind of echo Councilor McConnell, how much control do we have over that final decision as far as council when the master plan is written? Or is it the planning commission or code that makes the final choice?
I don't have a good answer. I have not been. Yeah, I don't have a good answer. I haven't been through the master plan process in Coburg. I don't know what it was like in previous experiences. I think it sounds like the mayor has been through a few of them. But I would refer you to the code, the master plan requirements themselves. But like I said, there are two steps of review. One is planning commission, one is city council. I believe they're called the concept plan and development plan. Those two different plans that get reviewed.
So Councillor Alexander, your question basically is if it came before a master review and the council had that decision, would they be able to vote over the code? Is that what you're saying?
I guess I'm just trying to find out what makes the final decision. I know code probably is a big part of that. And I guess I'm trying to see the guidelines that the council is going to have to follow regardless of what we feel.
Gary, can you add some clarification to that?
Well, I think the code provides the outside parameters of what can be approved. And within those parameters, you have a lot of flexibility, a lot of ability to do trade-offs. And the worst case scenario would be perhaps the developer really needs to exceed one of the code standards, and they would have to get a variance that would have to be approved by the city. But your master plan standards give you a lot of flexibility to work with the applicant. But again, the code is the outside parameters. So if you want to require more than what the code requires for landscaping, you probably could do that, but it would be a trade-off with the developer.
That's kind of what I was looking for. Okay.
Right, council, we're almost 9 o'clock on our basically first agenda item. I don't want to rush. This is a very important issue as we are deliberating here. I guess it seems like we've had an awful lot of discussion. Is there a process to move forward with a decision, or do we want more discussion? Including statements of support or opposition. Councillor Lehman.
I would just go back. It sounds like we've had 3 counselors, if not 4 counselors, that either made the statements that they felt rushed or not ready to make a decision. I would consider a motion to table this and reconvene the decision for a future council meeting.
Is that a motion you're making?
Yes.
So would you state that, please?
I move that we table this decision tonight and that we reschedule this for further discussion in a future council meeting.
Is there a second? Councilor McConnell, are you seconding?
Yes, I'm seconding.
Can I still can I still have a question, or is it stop right now?
Let me address the motion in a second, and then we can have discussion. There's a motion on the table to table this discussion and reschedule it for a future council meeting by Councillor Lehman. And there's a second by Councillor McConnell. And now we have discussion. Councillor Alexander.
Raymond or Mr. Fisher, are you still here?
Yes.
I got to say that I appreciate your patience and your flexibility, which says a lot as far as I'm concerned. And I've watched how you've kind of approached this from since I've seen you and met you indirectly. And I think that's great. I think I think you know exactly what we need to see right now. I know the incentive for you to not do campus would be that 40%. And I understand that. It's just not going to make you much money. And it's going to cost more than make you. So I definitely understand that. And I know that you had said that you were going to basically be a mediator between. So my question is, and I don't know if you live here or not, but my question is, what's your incentive to be an unbiased mediator?
Well, I think I'll go back to where I started on this. I started on Coburg Crossings way back in, I think, 2010, 2011. We developed the Diamond Ridge property up above. So we've always had kind of an ancillary relationship with Coburg. I've seen it through a lot of turmoil and finally some stability. Our idea for me to be an unbiased mediator, I'm always going to look out for myself, obviously. But at the same time, I think the relationship that we built with Ann and Ray and Henry and these people that is a pretty rare one, in that I've been trying to be as open as possible with them about what I can and can't do, and they've been open with me throughout the process of what they can and can't do. And we've kind of been working with actually going through the first appeal and getting into the urban growth boundary. We've kind of stood side by side for a while. So what I always heard from Coburg and all those charrettes and all those community meetings is if you're going to do industrial, do it on the other side of the freeway. We don't want it by Coburg. And by putting together an economic plan that showed that there is an untapped potential here, that either if Coburg grabs it or somebody else does. And so I'm gonna try and find somebody that we can get in there as quickly as possible, that will be financially feasible for me and my family. But at the same time, and I think light industrial is really almost the only way we can do that. I think campus industrial just makes it extremely tough, and we'd really have to rethink some things. I'm just going to be completely straightforward.
And I appreciate that, and I would expect that from what I've seen in you, that honesty.
Thank you.
Which goes a long way with me. Do you have other holdings within the city area or the UGBs that you are thinking about? No. Okay.
No. I've always tried to talk Mike Stevens into that property to the north, but he wants cows there. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
You, Councillor Alexander. Councillor Blaine.
Yeah, Raymond, thank you for your input. I mean, I'm going to vote to not hold this up anymore. I think the amount of time we've spent with Raymond and the commission, I think, has answered all the questions in the past. I think with the master plan, I think it all makes sense. I don't see any reason to talk about shifting to campus industrial. That just really doesn't work. Then the whole thing just, in my opinion, would stop. I believe. I don't think we should annex. I don't think we should continue to bring utility over there if that's the case, because I don't want a property that's zoned a certain way that's just going to be vacant and nothing happens there. It doesn't make any sense to me as far as a city goes. I think, taking care of our community members, making that fit. I think, Bigfoot Beverage is a good example of a local company that has done well here. And I think that would be a good fit for Coburg. And I think if we can control the way it looks and the feel of it and keep those setbacks and those things appropriate and comfortable for the neighboring properties, I think that's the best the city can do with everything we've gone through and everything we've looked into. So, I'm in support of light industrial.
A good fit as opposed to what else could come there, or a good fit? Question.
a good fit. I mean, I think for one of the parcels, if they take one of the first parcels, I think that's a good, strong company that's been in the community for a long time and involved. I think that's a good representation of our community. And I think that would fit well in Coburg, in my opinion.
Comments or questions, discussion? Call for a vote. The motion is to table the current discussion on the item of annexation and reschedule it for a future council meeting. Motion made by Councilor Lehman and seconded by Councilor McConnell. All those in favor of rescheduling and tabling this current discussion, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed.
The motion passes, so we will stop this discussion and reschedule it for another council meeting. Is there any direction that we can give to staff to help our counselors at the next meeting? Councilor McConnell.
Well, I would like some specifics on what a master plan can and cannot do.
Same for me.
Me too.
And I want to know, as Gary touched on, the limitations or the we have things in the code that are concerning to me, and that's code. You know, it's the 45-foot light towers. So that's been established as something, and they're 250,000 square foot. So there has to be trade-offs at a certain point. And so I just want to better understand that, because I immediately asked about Ann of the light stuff, and I heard about pointing down, but then I said there's no height requirement, and then I got more, and yeah, they point down from 45 feet up. Well, that still throws a lot of ambient light out. So, you know, that's a really fine, wormhole discussion, but it's an important one. And so by postponing it, I am more likely to understand more rather than vote no, which is where I was going if we voted tonight.
Agreed.
Councilor Lehman.
And I would like more information on the light pollution, the other pollution with regards to the rain and the amount of square footage of asphalt that's going to be on there with the lesser amounts of open space. And I'd like, frankly, a little more discussion about whether or not we can or should involve the citizens. I mean, we've talked about regional needs, but very little about local Coburg needs other than the need for employment lands. But campus industrial is employment land too. So I'd like to see some more discussion about whether surveys or more public input that can be gathered rather than just simply at these meetings, like we've used in the past with gas tax and the street tax.
Well, Councilor Lehman, you're saying not only do you want to know if there were surveys or something in the past, you would like to see something like that occur?
I'm just wondering, in discussions, do we want to have any more input from the citizens on this issue, specifically on campus versus industrial? I've heard comments tonight that there was citizen input opportunities going back to the discussions of the UGB and employment lands, but not necessarily light industrial versus campus industrial.
Okay. Counselor McConnell?
And I would like some specific information on the traffic impact with the distribution center.
Let's see. Well, we did have a traffic impact statement on the last meeting, and I'm not sure, is that what you're looking for, or are you looking for something?
Well, I don't recall if that was traffic impact for the greater use, whether it was for the campus industrial or whether it was for light industrial. I can't remember what.
So I would just share that I think it wouldn't matter. I think the traffic impact analysis is just the numbers. And so the numbers of cars, 613 or 632 peak traffic at this side of the interchange, which that TIA addressed, but you may go back to that. I don't know that whether it's residential or industrial or heavy industrial, it's just the numbers that you're looking for cars and what that would do. And I think it was a good analysis.
But with the distribution center, we're looking at trucks, right?
Almost anything that would go in there would be trucks.
Well, I thought part of that was the amount of employees.
A significant portion, but I guess, Raymond, I believe it was broke down in your TIA.
I don't recall that.
I do have Kelly on here. She's our traffic engineer. Kelly, do you want to pipe up?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so the traffic analysis assumed that the type of mixes in typical industrial use would include trucks and employment. So in the PM peak hour, what you're going to mostly get is people leaving work, and trucks, like the Bigfoot beverage that they're thinking that would possibly go in there, usually starts a little bit earlier in the morning. And their trucks for delivery are usually going out early, before stores are opening. And then they're usually back to the center, distribution center, usually early afternoon. So they're not PM peak hour. So our analysis did look at that mix of trucks and cars, but the PM peak hour, you're not usually seeing a heavy truck usage. And then the design for the interchange and the roadway safety all looks at it, the trucks too. So the trucks usage on that side of the freeway is definitely taken into consideration in both the analysis and the design of the freeway and the safety. And then when this site goes in, they will trigger a whole new traffic study very specific to this use. So then they'll be looking at all those things again, very specific to that use. So, and they'll be looking at the AM peak hour too. Because for the zone change, we don't look at the AM, we're just looking at PM, but the traffic study that they'll have to do for this site will look at AM and PM. And any other concerns that the city has that they'll want to include in the traffic study. The city and ODOT and Lane County will all get a chance to take a look at it again.
Thank you, Kelly. Councilor McConnell, I was just asking the questions because I wanted to make sure that you didn't want something besides this TIA, this traffic impact analysis, which I think has pretty much everything for traffic that you might want to know. Is there something else specific that you were looking for?
Well, I believe one of our concerns about having a distribution center is the increase in heavy trucks, heavy transportation units, and whether that would make a difference in our community.
Okay, I think the TIA might answer that. And again, like Kelly said, if they were to come in, they would have to do a master plan that would require a very specific TIA to whatever business comes into that. And so either way, there's going to be TIAs for everything that goes on over there, traffic impact analysis. Anything else councilors want from staff for consideration at the next meeting? Councilor Blaine.
I think we need to get the master plan back out. If there's, copies of that, we can get updated versions and read through those to see kind of where planning commission and the council was at the time of those decisions, if possible.
You're saying master plan, but that's with development. Are you talking about when we acquired it into the UGB?
Yeah, so like the master plan we worked off of, I know we had, that all the paperwork and illustrations and that sort of thing. I remember having that in the city council where we were able to kind of
When
look
all
at.
lots of land were numbered and we went through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we still have that available.
Gotcha. Okay. We're going to move forward. I think we've got plenty of information that we'll put forward. I see Councilor Lehman. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, if we could get from the planning commission, for those that voted against the light industrial and voted for the campus industrial, if we could get some of their thoughts as to why they supported campus over industrial, might be helpful.
It's unique. It is available on video. You can watch the meeting. Did you know that?
Do you want us to watch it, or is there any way to have a synopsis of it?
The minutes.
It may not be captured in the minutes, so I guess if you can make it available for us to watch, then we could do
It's on
that.
the city website.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Lehman, this is Nancy Bell. I'm just referring to the report that the planning commission gave us and written on the November commission meeting. It says the commission voted unanimously to recommend approval to the city council, the annexation and rezoning of the lot as light industrial. That's
Okay.
in our packets, so I'm not sure what you're referring to, but that's what I'm seeing. And I think to go back and take a look on video for that November meeting might answer your question.
Okay, I'll have to check my sources to the person I talked with who said there was not a unanimous decision.
We can certainly confirm that. And I'm going to move on. We've made the decision. It's 9:13 now. And we're on item 5. Resolution 2022-01, a resolution applying a construction cost inflation factor to existing system development charges.
Good evening.
Hi, Megan.
Hello. Before you is a resolution to approve applying an inflation in construction costs to the city's system development charges. This is a routine housekeeping resolution that comes around at the beginning of every year so that what the city is charging is appropriate with the inflation in construction. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Currently seeing no questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution 2022-01, a resolution applying an annual construction cost inflation factor to existing system development charges.
Second.
Second.
Councilor Fox Beachy. Councilor McConnell. So we have a motion by Councilor Blaine and a second by Councilor Fox to adopt resolution 2022-01, a resolution applying a construction cost inflation factor to existing system development charges. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Megan. Item number 6, Resolution 2022-02, the resolution of the City Council of the City of Coburg allocating American Rescue Plan Act funds to certain projects of the city.
Good evening, counselors. Sorry about the voice. This is a follow-up. In December, we brought you a report about how we could spend the American Recovery Funds, and the council gave staff direction on how these would be spent. And you gave direction that it would be $50,000 for the design and engineering of the public workshop, $15,000 for the bike kiosk, $15,000 for the Coburg Chamber, $40,000 for Main Street's economic development and downtown beautification, and $9,864 for broadband planning and feasibility study. And so this is resolution 2022-02, applying the council's direction for allocating the ARPA funds.
Questions to staff? Thank you, Ann. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the city council approve resolution 2022-02 allocating ARPA funds to certain projects of the city.
Second.
Motion by Councilor McConnell with a second by Councilor Fox to adopt resolution 2022-02, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Coburg allocating American Rescue Plan Act funds to certain projects of the city. All those in favor, please raise your hands and say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you, councilors. Item 7, resolution 2022-03, a resolution approving the property exchange agreement with Shepherd Investment Group LLC and acceptance of donation of $40,000 land value.
Again, this first came to council in August, and they gave staff direction to work with the Shepherd Investment Group for the exchange of the properties. We did put together a property exchange agreement that was reviewed by our attorney. It was also reviewed by their attorney and their property lawyer. And so this resolution approves us moving forward to exchange these two properties. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about this.
Questions from councilors? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution 2022-03, a resolution approving the property exchange agreement with Shepherd Investment Company LLC and acceptance of donation of $40,000 land value.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Bell and a second by Councilor Blaine to adopt resolution 2022-03, a resolution approving the property exchange agreement with Shepherd Investment Group LLC and acceptance of donation of $40,000 land value. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Number 8,
Resolution 2022-04, a resolution adopting City of Coburg 2022 Employee Policy Manual. Ann?
So this is mostly an annual resolution that we actually update the policy manual. Sometimes that update has to do with employees' questions that we get that we need to clarify language, that maybe it's not as clear as it could be. Sometimes it's CIS language that we can go up on the website and see what is the latest recommendation for policy manuals. And we can make adjustments there. So this year, you have the track changed document. Unfortunately, the one up on the screen, whatever reason, the software kind of messed it up, that paragraph, so it's not readable. So I wanted to let you see that one as it needs to look. But so we've added on page 3, pregnancy accommodation language. We've clarified merit increase language. That was to clarify when exactly the merit increase takes place. We have a slight change in wording in compensation for excellence and retention. Certification pay, those were clarifications for the difference between the police certifications and the public works certifications. Public works have 6 and the police have 3. And so we just wanted to make that clearly stated what is offered for those 2 departments. Flex time clarifications, it tightens it up a little bit. An employee can't just decide to have a flexible schedule. There's policy as to how you go about requesting a flexible schedule or flexing time out when you have worked too many hours. And also added in a requirement for a telecommuting agreement to be signed if employee is requesting to work from home. The one up on your screen is a change in accrued vacation policy. I think this is the biggest change that we are making in this, in that this really came about from council discussion about how we applied vacation. And we've had a couple instances when employees stayed less than 6 months out of their own choice. They started the job and then they found it wasn't for them, or they found a different job and moved on for whatever reason. But we end up paying them out on vacation that they can't really take. And so we've rewritten the policy to say that while someone is on a 6-month probationary period, they do not accrue vacation. But once they've completed their 6-month probation, they are then credited with 40 hours. So they do get a reward for moving to the permanent employee, and they do have available vacation to them. And then the other change that we made was that people started out at 6.75 hours per month. And that is when we're trying to look at how we compare to other cities. Very few cities do anything less than 8 hours a month for vacation. So we just changed from 6 months to 71 months. They would receive eight hours a month, or 8 hours a month. And then we didn't change anything after that. So this is a change that the council can discuss. But this was just our way of trying to solve that. And somebody comes in and they immediately get vacation, but they can't take it. And then we end up paying them out and they're not staying anyway. So it's a detriment to the city and funds that could be spent towards employees that are working hard at the city. And then clarification on the eligibility and accrual of sick leave was made. Sick leave donation, there was a clarification to who approves that. Holidays, we added Juneteenth. That's also a discussion of the council if you want to do that. That I've put it in there. That would add another holiday. There's a clarification for floating holidays and for personal holiday clarification. And then for the HRA health reimbursement account, there's a clarification as to when that begins. Then we did add alcohol and drug use language, which was recommended CIS language. So I'm happy to answer any questions. The track changes, the changes are in bright yellow, but the software for creating the packets kind of pushed some of it together, so it's hard to read. And that's especially why I put the vacation one up on the screen.
Councilor McConnell?
I just have a clarification on the 6-month probationary period. It says upon permanent hire, a full 40 hours vacation will be added to the employee's vacation bank. So could they work 6 months in one day and get that 40 hours, or is it an accrual type thing?
Now, when somebody has finished their probationary period, they get a letter that says you are now a permanent employee of the city. And then they would get that 40 hours. Yeah, they could potentially leave at 6 months and one day.
Okay. That's all. I just wanted clarification.
Councilor Lehman?
Yeah, so I was going to ask, I didn't know when I saw Juneteenth added as an extra holiday, whether that was a statewide law or mandate. It's optional. What's the status of that Juneteenth across the state?
Federal holiday.
So it's a federal holiday, so it doesn't
Federal
necessarily.
holiday being added.
Okay, but doesn't apply to like school districts or city employees?
I think it's each organization has to make up their decision as to whether or not they want that as a holiday.
Okay, so is that a decision that will come to city council before this is finalized in the staff handbook?
No, you would have to make that decision tonight, whether you want to include that holiday in there or not.
Okay, so when we're approving the handbook, we're approving that specifically as well.
Yes.
Okay, and then also under personal holidays, so employees may select one additional day with pay per calendar year. It's been on there in the past. Can you just kind of explain that a bit?
Yeah, so in addition to holidays, they get one personal day a year. That's their personal holiday. The clarification, that's been there all along. The clarification that we made was sometimes employees have taken 4 hours at a time, but that wasn't really, it wasn't clear that they should do that. That was more directed towards taking a full day off. So we just clarified that they may take it in 4-hour increments. So they can't split it up in 2 hours, but if they want to take a half of a day here and a half a day there, they could do that.
And so where's the language there about 4 hours then?
Let's see, let me find it, page 22. So that's one of those ones that it got kind of messed up. So they may select one additional day with pay per calendar year. And that's the language that kind of got messed up there, that says that they may use it in 2 4-hour increments. It says it there, but it's not clear because the software kind of messed it up. So basically what it's saying is employees have to request the time off that, and it can be in 2 4-hour increments.
Says employees may split the personal holiday
Well, you can read that.
to nothing less than 4 hours.
Ours doesn't show that.
Well, it's all crunched
Ours is
up.
our gobbledygook.
It's all crunched up from the packet software. I don't know why it did that, but and I apologize. And it didn't do it on everything. It just did it on a few things.
Questions?
How does it read?
Oh, sure. I strained my eyes real hard to read this. Employees may split the personal holiday into increments of no less than 4 hours. They can take 4-hour blocks, but nothing less.
Okay.
Questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I just had one additional question.
Go ahead, Councilor Lehman.
So what was the discussion about warranting the Juneteenth holiday, adding?
The staff asked if we were going to add it, and I said I would put it in there, but it would be up to the council whether or not, some cities are adding it, and counties are adding it. It's up to individual organizations whether they add it or not. We don't grant all federal holidays. There are some we don't. There was decisions made before as to which holidays would be granted. So, and every organization does things differently. So the only question that came up here is, are we going to add it? And I said, well, that's up to the council. So we'll put it in there and they can make that decision.
Fox?
How many paid holidays are there? And I have no opposition to Juneteenth. I'm just wondering how many there are, and do we factor in the cost when we do these things?
Yes, we factor in the cost. This would make 11 paid holidays and 1 floating personal day. There was 10, this would make 11.
Having holiday envy.
Lehman?
I would make a motion to approve the City of Coburg Employee Policy Manual, but excluding the Juneteenth holiday.
I second that.
I have a motion by Councilor Lehman and a second by Councilor Blaine to approve Resolution 2022-04, a resolution adopting City of Coburg 2022 Employee Manual minus the Juneteenth holiday. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Can we have a discussion first?
I'm sorry. Let's have.
Can we have a discussion first?
Councilor McConnell.
So my concern is that it might look like a political move.
From what I know, and part of the discussion, I think only one state has actually adopted it as a paid holiday. Is that correct? I think Texas is the only one where it originated. Texas is the only state that actually makes it a paid holiday. I know that most of the country recognizes it as a holiday, but only one state is actually recognizing it as a paid holiday, and that is the original state where it came from.
Counselor Lehman?
Well, my opposition is not so much about Juneteenth as that this is presented to council for a decision on a total package of the employment package or the manual. And this is in there without any previous notification or discussion. So I just oppose it on those grounds.
Counselor Fox?
I would agree with Councilor Lehman. It has a financial impact, and that should be discussed. I have no objection to Juneteenth, but it is a rich holiday package already. And again, there's so many employees, and that's a cost factor.
Counselor Blaine?
I'll echo the councilors Fox and Councilor Lehman, and that I think it's really just the fact that there's lots of holidays and not really knowing much about it previous to this. So
I'm okay with that.
Any other questions or discussion? For a vote? Motion by Councilor Lehman and a second by Councilor Blaine to adopt Resolution 2022-04, a resolution adopting City of Coburg 2022 Employee Policy Manual minus the Juneteenth holiday. Those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Park and Tree Committee appointment for 2022 calendar year. Brian.
Good evening, everybody. This is just some annual housekeeping. We do this every January. We just need to reappoint the voting members of the Park and Tree Citizen Advisory Committee. Does anybody have any questions?
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to recommend that Mayor Smith appoint Karen Corey, Tom Beatty, Colleen Marshall, Lana Meston, Joe Murnau, Mary Mosier, and Claire Smith as the 7 voting members of the Park Tree Citizen Advisory Committee for the calendar year 2022.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Fox and a second by Councilor McConnell to recommend that Mayor Smith appoint Karen Corey, Tom Beatty, Colleen Marshall, Lana Meston, Joe Morneau, Mary Mosier, and Claire Smith as the 7 voting members of the Park Tree Citizen Advisory Committee for the calendar year 2022. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Brian.
Hey, that could be the easiest part of your night right there.
I think it was. Wait a minute, it's not done yet. It is my honor and privilege as mayor to appoint Karen Corey, Tom Beatty, Colleen Marshall, Lana Meston, Joe Morneau, Mary Mosier, and Claire Smith to the Parks Tree Citizen Advisory Committee for 2022. And thank them for their service. Thank you very much. Okay, I need to ask permission. Is anybody opposed to continuing this? Because we're at 9:39 right now. I'm supposed to ask at 9:30. Anybody opposed to continuing the meeting? None, we're moving forward.
Expeditiously continuing.
I'm trying. Administrative information reports from Tim and Ann. We have the monthly report administration. Ann. Ann, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I can answer any questions that you may have about the city administrator's report. I did go in and update at the 6-month period where we are on the work plan. So if you had a chance to look at that, we marked things that we are in process on in green and things that have been completed. Lots in process right now. So happy to answer any questions about that. One particular thing that I needed to mention to the council, and Brian can help me out here, is under the water project, we have construction options being considered. I am just making the council aware that we are running into some challenges with the placement of the reservoir. It's a complicated explanation that we hope to give you a lot more information on, but it basically comes down to the initial modeling of where the reservoir would be in the water master plan when that document was completed, and the actual placement of the reservoir when the engineering of it started. We ran into some issues with that placement, and our engineer is considering other options for the placement of the reservoir, and if we place it where it's supposed to go, there could be some additional expenses. We would like to call the water team back together in early February. We do have a water team that was appointed to address these kinds of things with the water project as they came up. So far, we haven't had much come up. Everything's been very smooth, but this is our first challenge that we have come up. So we would be pulling that team together, and that team would sit with the engineers and talk about some of the challenges with the water reservoir, and then a recommendation would be made back to the city council in February or March, and more information so that you could make a decision as to what direction you wanted to go. So I just wanted to give you the heads up on that. Brian, do you have anything else you want to add on that?
No, you hit all of the topics therein. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, I have a lot of questions, but I'll save them for the water group because I am a member of that water group, and then hopefully we can bring some clarification to council. So just be ready to answer questions at the water group for me.
You bet.
I'm happy to answer any questions about anything on the city administrator's report.
Councillor Bell.
I'm sorry, and I will keep this quick. I'm just trying to figure out the colors on the goals, priorities, and work plan. Green is ongoing. White is what?
Green is in process and was supposed to be yellow. I think with the software changed the color. Orange is completed.
Orange is completed, green is ongoing, and white is what?
Hasn't started yet.
Hasn't started. Okay, a key would be helpful for future reference.
Okay, thank you.
Questions for administration report? Finance report, Tim.
Good evening, everybody. So I've entertained any questions you might have on the report in front of you. Anybody have any questions? It's through November.
Councilor Lehman.
Well, rather than just, if there's any questions, can you just give us a verbal summary?
What? I'm sorry, John?
A verbal discussion or summary, rather than just, do we have any questions?
Sure. Sorry, give me a second. I'm pulling it up here. Sorry, I have a little issue with my software here. Okay, yeah, so what we have here is to November 30th. If everything was spent out equally, we'd be at 42%. As you can see, we're at 23% on whole city revenue and 21% of budgeted on expenses. I did put some information here about the city debt. I'm not going to go into the details on that. We do have one of the payments has been made already this year on the, sorry, I'm not catching the dates here, in July, and that was for the sewer portion. And we do have a water project reimbursement out. It's reimbursement number 4. I'm anticipating that coming in, it should be by the end of January rather, for about $40,700. All of the funds as a general street, water, and sewer are operating within their budgets. We do have a finance audit committee meeting in January, at the end of January. I think it's on the 26th, I believe. And we are working with our auditor to complete our audit. Are there any specific questions?
I have a question.
You bet.
Why is the sewer fund's expenses so outpacing the revenue?
And are you looking at the bar chart that I created, the fund?
Yeah, and I appreciate the comparison.
Yeah, no worries. That is because we had to make a large sewer loan bond payment. Excuse me, I want to call it loan, but it's actually a bond. We made a large payment, so that kind of skews the numbers a little bit.
Okay,
quite a bit, actually, quite a bit. It's a large payment. Any other questions?
Councilor Lehman?
Yes, you mentioned auditor. There was previous discussion after the last audit that we were perhaps looking for new auditor.
Well, we're going to go out for RFP for audit as required. And so it doesn't necessarily mean we would have a new auditor, but we will be putting on an RFP. I'm hoping March or April. Does that sound about right, Ann? Do you think March or April? Can't hear you, Ann.
And you're muted.
That's answering my question, that there was some discussion about possibly looking at a new auditor.
Yes, we will be putting out an RFP. It's actually completed and going to be going to Ann and the Finance Audit Committee for review this week.
I'm just curious, how long have we worked with our current auditor?
5 years.
Oh, that's about the time to start looking at.
Right.
Okay.
Questions for finance? Done. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, everybody.
Can I just ask a question? So the finance report and the administrator's report is at the end of the agenda, and they're information only. So we tend to not give as much verbal and ask for questions, assuming that you've read them. And if you want us to give us more presentation on those reports, we're happy to do so. But staff is going with that they're information only, and the finance would be a presentation once every quarter. So if you want us to give more presentation with our reports, we are very happy to do that. But I just wanted to explain maybe why your not hearing as much presentation as you may be used to with those reports, because we kind of readjusted it with the mayor, with discussions with the mayor, and also making sure that those tough decision-making discussions that you had were at the front end. And so that we weren't taking up time and placing these things at the back end. So we're happy to do whatever you want as a council.
And I was just responding to that. In the past, we had quite a bit more discussion on each of these items, not just quarterly, but if that's been a change, then I guess I missed that we're just doing written information only, and only when we ask questions that we get further information or discussion.
Has been a decision that I made because of nights like this where we do have an awful lot of material, and the discussion time to me is more important on ordinances and stuff. I think one of the strengths of this council is they do read their packets and they're very knowledgeable. And so rather than spending time with presentations when we've probably already read all of that information, I think it's a very reasonable process to just have questions asked. And if councilors agree with that, I'd like to do a thumbs up, thumbs down right now. If you want to keep going with just a information only and questions at the end, please do a thumbs up. I love these strong decision makers. Looks like thumbs up wins. Thank you. Given a time when we have a slow evening, we'll probably get verbal presentations on many things from staff, but at the rate it's going right now, we're not going to see those nights for a while. It is time for council comments. Do councilors have any comments to close out the evening? Councilor McConnell.
I have a question on the Planning Commission's remarks that they do not feel like we understand what we're supposed to be doing. Question.
I have a question on that too. You know, I've mentioned it before, land use planning is one of the most difficult things that government does. And even John Marshall, who has been on that planning commission for 10 years, would admit he knows little about land use planning. He does know a lot compared to many of us, including myself. But there is so much involved in land use planning as I look at Gary Darnielle stirring off there, thinking of all the things that he's dealt with. It's a tough one. So I wanted to look into that and see what that question actually related to. Because honestly, do we know every build? We had questions about our building code. Do I know the building code? Do you know the building code? No. Do we expect you to? No, we got too many things already that we're trying to learn here. That's what our planning commission is for, is to be the subject matter experts and make recommendations for us, and then have our planners like Henry and Gary and others assist us through that. So, you know, that's one of the things counselors need to look at is we do have some opportunities that we send planning commissioners to, and Counselor Bell is the liaison to the planning commission, but we could all take land use planning classes if we wanted to. So I'm going to look into that question that came up there, Counselor McConnell, and see if I can find an answer for you and me.
So as a follow-up to that, what the statement was that we're bound to the code and we can't just deny a project because we don't like it. And I don't believe we ever do that. And I hope that there is understanding with the Planning Commission that we take this job very seriously and that we just don't willy-nilly deny or approve of something that they've done. And that as counselors, we have an obligation to sometimes question what they've done.
Former planning commissioner, you know where you speak from.
I do.
And I'd like to say I do too, but it's been decades since I was on the planning commission. But I still think the land use planning,
We have a good council, and we obviously had a very good discussion tonight, and it's a tough decision. This process, this specific piece of land has had many of these types of discussions, and we're just on the tail end of many of those. So I think I want to pursue that a little bit and see where the planning commission is at with this, because one of the things that I've had a problem with planning commissions is they've been taught, and I don't mean to criticize planners or planning commission members, but they've been taught that you have to follow the code. And you do. But the code is black and white. And we all know that somewhere in there, there's some gray, as Gary Darnielle explained. The code is the outside perimeters that we can work within. And so we work within that. And that's what our master plan is trying to do for us. And I think through the years, we've been brainwashed that you have to look in the black and the white and say, it's this or this. Well, I disagree with that. And that's been one of the elements that I've really tried to change, especially with our master plan process, is to get that citizen input in the beginning and then go through the black and white toward the end. But the planning commissioners do have some leeway with some subjective definitions and things in that code. And I want to actually make that stronger. I know it drives legal people crazy, but I want to have a little objectivity in what we're doing rather than black and white. And I think that's what's made our decision strong in the previous master plans. So that just my 10 cents, I'm sorry that I rambled on. Any other comments from councilors? Councilor Lehman.
Well, I would just like to congratulate and commend the counselors for their independent thought and expressions tonight, that when it appeared that it was maybe a foregone conclusion, we were going to vote for light industrial annexation, that when 3 or 4 of us felt rushed on such an important decision that we didn't have all of our questions answered, or it was predisposed that others felt that we had no really decision on this, that was something that was just expected for us to vote this way, and that we actually listened to the testimony that was presented, as well as our own readings of the staff report. We came to our own conclusions that we're just not ready for this decision yet, that we still needed some more discussion and answers, and ultimately maybe light industrial will be the decision, but to do so more thoughtfully for this council, maybe not as well versed and informed as previous councils or others that had more information than what we had when we processed this.
Thank you, Counselor. And again, I think it's, you guys know that I believe that testimony and discussion is so important to help us get to a decision. I've sat on previous councils where it was pretty much a solid process with minimal discussion, and do your 3-minute presentation, have the discussion, and move forward. I've been frustrated by that as a counselor, and that's why I run my meetings a little different than most people, and I hope that the council continues to support that, and we are able to have that dialogue and make strong decisions because of it. Other comments from councilors? None? I will close this meeting at 10 o'clock. Thank you, councilors and staff.